Hello and welcome to our next podcast. So we haven't met for a while, Katreni and myself. We've been on our own little adventures and having a natural pause. And we've come back together today to discuss a really interesting happening in the cosmos, and you might be feeling this yourself. We're going to be talking about the breaking open of individuality, of creativity that the cosmos is patterning at the moment. So we're going to be looking at the Nodal Shift that is happening. We're also going to be looking at Pluto and what's happening with Pluto moving into Gene Key 60 or Gate 60, which is going to be, shaking up the chaos even more. Okay, so I just wanted to begin by saying, well, firstly, to introduce Katreni Maticce is a human design analyst and guide from Moscow. I'm Alison. I live in West Yorkshire in England, and I'm a Goddess Asteroid Astrologer is my main area. So we're also going to be looking today at Ceres and Sedna as part of the story. And what I love about myself and Katreni's meetings is I feel we certainly she does in me enhance this individuality and the mind kind of breaking out of the usual boxes, if you like. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to leap outside the normal boxes and begin a journey. And one of the synchronicities that's happened is that Katreni's been drawn to watch a documentary called The Secret Life of Chaos. And at the same time, I've been watching these documentaries on Mandelbrot on Netflix. The first one I watched was called Clouds Are Not Spheres. And they're both essentially about the same thing. They're about these seemingly chaotic patterns in the universe. And yet underlying that, there is this intelligence that Mandelbrot and other mathematicians who thought outside the box have been able to identify. And one of the ways this kind of came to me actually the last month is I've been really contemplating Pluto. And I heard this thing about Pluto I'd never heard before, that Pluto is a binary planet system with Charon, which is also said to be a moon as well. So I heard the astrologer Melanie Reinhardt say this, and I was like, what? I had no idea of that. So I went off to do some research, and it turns out that this is true, that Pluto is the only binary planetary system in our solar system. But because it's binary, it generates a very chaotic pattern, especially with one of its moons called Nyx. And so this contemplative question came to me about, can we understand and can we actually embody and move into whatever this deeper pattern is that's going on? And it feels that it's very much linked to, well, it's linked to all life on Earth, but it feels like it's linked to, what makes us really individual and how we can move out of being sort of mediocre, compromised beings and break out of these very rigid mental patterning ideas that have been imposed on us by the culture. So many of us are working with that, and hopefully today this is going to give even more inspiration towards that. As we enter 54 line 1, that feels like a really good day actually to be doing this podcast. Okay, so I'm going to invite Katreni in and to talk, just to give us a little bit of an overview in human design around what are individual gates and what are tribal gates.
Thank you, Alison. Yeah, it's nice to share tea today with you. I'm drinking some pu'er and yeah, enjoying its taste. Yes, I think to talk about some circuitry in human design is of value, because when we talk about nodes, which we're going to do, and when we talk about certain activations, there are just 3 places where they fall in human design. And the 3 places are called collective, tribal, and individual. And they mostly have very simple keywords to them, which you can apply in your own body graph, or like talking about your friend's body graph with them. And they're very important because they give a relief when you understand where you have activations. If you don't have activations in tribal, but all your life you've been forced or conditioned to do certain tribal things, which I will describe what is that, then you can have a relief and release that that's not for you, and that you don't have to fix that in yourself. You're perfect as you are. Or you've been trying to, I don't know, to fall into some collective patterns, but you're deeply individual, so you don't give a about all the collective junk and stuff like that. And so they are very important, and to understand them as anything in the human design, it's very visual. You look at the map, you look what's colored in and what's like white. You look at your centers, you like slowly, layer by layer, you kind of, through the visual thing, you start to understand what is what, and it kind of imprints in your brain, in your neocortex, and then your brain has some things to do, not just to make decisions, but has something to analyze and like play with it, which is brain is is good. It's good at everything, measuring and looking at things, just not making decisions with your brain, with your mind. I'm sorry, not brain, of course, but with the mind. And I guess I will share some screen to see. That's actually my body graph. So we look at it, it's 9 centers, because we are 9-centered beings. And we look at this channels, they're called channels. And what's colored, what you can see colored, it's called gates, or in gene keys, it's called gene keys. Or we call gates gene keys. And when 2 gene keys or 2 gates come together, they form a channel, which is a quantum, which is neither these 2 gates. And this channel, if you have one, it always defines 2 centers. It colors in. The moment you have 2 gates coming together, they always activate the hubs of energy, because channels are not just some kind of channels. That's your chi, that's your energy, that's your definition, that's where certain energy circulates in your body, something you can rely on 24 hours a day, since the moment you're born till the moment you die. So that's what's interesting about also human design that it puts things into your body. It puts like this activations, which are activated basically by the planets. So we could see the planets, that's a transit things. But here we could see planets, and they kind of, every planet is in a certain position. And so I just give you a small overview of what all of that means. So I have also channel here, 6124 gates. They form a channel of awareness, and it colors the head center and the Ajna center, or here it's channel of transformation formed by 3254. It colors the root and the spleen centers. And those two activations are from different circuitries there, which is individual circuitry, and this one is tribal. So I will say, I will start with an individual and just show you where they are in the whole body graph. An individual is one of the keywords for individual is acoustic. And acoustic is something that kind of penetrates the whole body. It's something like, envelops, or I don't know, it's in the middle. When we are attuned to acoustics, or people have sensitivity to acoustics, it's really not just somewhere in your body, not just in the ears. It's kind of, it's a frequency, and it's right in the center. So is the individual channels, which is goes right through all of the central column in the body graph. So it's 61, 24, 43, 23, 8, 1, 214, 360 here. But also it goes in the middle in those channels like 39, 55. You see when I go into with my cursor here, it kind of colors with a green the middle. So it's this one, then it goes 12, 22 manifestor channel, 43, 23, 20, 34, 57. This is an integration kind of a complex system in the middle of the body, which is important because that's where our nodes been so far, 34, 20, and 28, 38. And so this is individual channels and individual circuitry in the body graph. And the main keyword is empowerment. So people who have a channel in this circuitry, the main thing for them is empowerment. So they're not here to support, they're not here to share mainly whatever it is they want to share. It's not their, it's not their need, it's not their chemistry. They're here to empower or being empowered. They're not into the sticky business of tribe. They're not into sharing, I don't know, their talent with a collective, like, I don't know, 4816 is a collective channel of talent, and it's a talent based on certain patterns, on certain skills, and like, I don't know, music, architecture, kind of this kind of patterns where you can be talented, more mathematical based, so to say, more formula based. But individual, if it creates out of I don't know, out of melancholy, or out of because they cannot not create. So there is this passion. This is another keyword for individual stream. It's passionate about something, and it cannot not do. So there is this passion energy in it, romantic energy in it, and the main keyword is empowerment. So it's here to empower, and also this empowerment always comes with mutation. Individual is a freak. It's a genius or a freak kind of dichotomy. So if someone understands or being empowered by individual because it kind of delivered something simple, or something like structured, or something that been possible to take in because it was expressed with the right people or in the right time, this like contribution being made in a perfect timing with someone, it brings mutation. So it's the only system, it's the only chemistry within us, and that's what we share with the human body, with the body of humanity. It brings mutation, so it changes structures and it changes everything, like it injects mutation. So when an individual receives something from the cosmos, being empowered or passionate, it creates something or it thinks about something, the channel of inspiration I'm empowering with my mind. Okay, 6124, that's what I do. I have a certain fixed mind, certain awareness regarding whatever. I have my own chemistry process. And 61 is a gate of inspiration. I have it here in Russian. Anyway, of inner truth, and I can empower with my mind. And this is what I also like to receive as an individual. I like to be empowered by someone else, by someone else's process. Would you like to share something, Alison?
Yeah. I'm just like looking at this, and I'm like, wow, your chart's really activated at the moment, because Pluto is in the 61 and Uranus in the 24. So that channel of awareness is really like super at the moment. And then it's really interesting that 14th, I think we said the 14th of January, this that's when Pluto's going to move into 60, which is right at the other end of the channel. So just wanted your thoughts on that, because it feels like, you know, I'm kind of feeling how when Pluto moves into 60, this kind of chaos energy, almost what I feel is it's going to break systems down even more, like it's shaking the whole universe, our whole universe, and then new things are going to form in these like Mandelbrot fractals. So yeah, just noticing that really and getting excited.
Yeah, I think we want to talk about Pluto for our dessert, but yeah, while it's like visual here, first is like I'm not getting much of this energy because I have my own definition. I mean, I can feel the collective psychosis since Pluto enters 61, but I'm living with it since birth. I'm joking, but this is my definition, so I'm not receiving there anything. I'm kind of, that's what I'm sharing my Wi-Fi, like I'm sharing my chemistry with the world. So I'm kind of, it's been easy for me to get through the 61 transit when Pluto was in this channel, because I have my own thing. And for, I don't know, 31 years, I've been into that chemistry, understanding it and being it and kind of aligning with it. So, and as well, I won't feel much the limitation, if we talk in the shadow words, when Pluto will enter 60, because I have my own limitation. I've been also living with it. But yeah, I guess people who will get it, especially when they don't have, when they're not defined here, and if they receive through the transit, the channels, that's powerful, because hand and root is pressure center. So that's like a sandwich. There is like a pressure. When you have it open, you receive pressure from the whole world, because whole world with the transits, it's kind of, it's a neutrino stream that colors, that penetrates all of us. And those who don't have definition, they receive this pressure from both ends. Since 2020, when Pluto enters 61, it's been a psychosis. For many people, it's been inspiration so far, but it's two ends of one stick, and inspiration and psychosis. And so will be with Pluto entering the pressure, the root center, the fuel, the adrenals. So it's gonna activate also certain shadow themes, of course, which is limitation, but also what Pluto does is that it transforms whatever it enters. mostly through death, transformation, but it also kind of eliminates. But I guess I want to return to it later on also. So the individual is genius or freak, and there will be a lot of transits. Also, Uranus gonna go through all the individual gates. So the nodes, which we're gonna discuss, also are individual. So what's happening, what the program mainly does, it's really individuate us, it mutates us. There is this acoustic alignment that's happening now with all the transits of the nodes of planets, especially Pluto and Uranus, which are big collective planets. So it individuates, it mutates the whole collective by entering certain gates of the individual stream. And I really love individual, but some people have just tribal or collective activations, or have all of the three activations or definitions in this circuitry. So it's kind of, we're a living paradox, because these streams, they don't necessarily like each other. They're really, really different. So having, like myself, I'm individual and I'm tribal, and tribe hates individual because tribe doesn't like to be mutated. It doesn't like freaks. It likes like certain ways the tribe rules, which are, or principles, and individual doesn't give a shit about any rules or principles or like moral stuff. It just likes to be inspired. It just likes to be empowered. It just likes to create things and being empowered by that. So tribal is this one, is 3254. And then what's interesting about tribe, you can see when I get it, it gets colored with a little red thing. So it's all about heart. This is the wheel, heart center. So all the tribal streams, channels, they go into the heart from the root, 3254, 1949, 3740, 4426, 2145. So they all go into the heart. So it's about service. Tribe is all about gathering, and you could see it's like inside collective, and it's kind of inside the body. It's kind of hidden. It's all about heart and stomach. The will center is all about heart, stomach. So it's all about food. It's the main keyword of the tribe is support. So you support me, I support you. It's all about community, 3740. It's a channel of community, part design of a part seeking a whole. It's about, yeah, it's about support. It's about one hand versus the other hand. It's about resources. It's about touch, resources, food, support, and all the monarchies and actually existing kind of power things, they're based on the tribal stuff. So always those who are in power, they're kind of a tribe of people, and they don't like to share their power. So this manifestor channel 4521, for example, it's only channel that goes into the throat. This is the only voice of the tribe, and it's a channel of money, a design of materialist. So it's in a low frequency, it's about resources and taking as much resources as you want your tribe to support your tribe, but then it can grow out of borders, which we can see in existing power structures. And it's also 4121. It's been kind of king, queen channel. So all the monarchies are all existing before and losing its actuality. Power structures, they're fading away with all the kings and queens where there was just one ruler and stuff. So this is a tribal thing, and tribal doesn't care about people who are not in the tribe. That's an interesting moment about that, and people who try to kind of do something with those power. It's actually been working, and it's not possible to mutate the tribe. I mean, almost impossible. We have this 2551 kind of sticking out, which is also part of the individual stream. The initiation that can happen, the shaman that is within the tribe, the freak that is within the tribe can mutate it or can bring kind of new blood into the tribe, because tribe can die out if there will be no freaks that suddenly go into the village and there is like a genetic mix that's starting. So this is a tribe, and it's very sticky. People who have it, it's like it's my resources, it's not yours. You give me, I give you. It's like it's very, very sticky. It always remembers what it gave to whom, so it waits to receive back. So it's the support is very sticky. Family business is pretty sticky. Tribal, and tribal hates collective because collective, here you can see, and collective is like at the border of the body graph. It's like goes from the sides. We have this collective channels in the head and gates, storyteller 1156, and the channel of acceptance and design of organizational being 7062, 4816. So this, when I color, it's blue. It's abstract side, which goes through the solar plexus, which is all about feelings. And then there is this cold side, which goes through the spleen, and it has also a different frequency and taste to it. And also in the middle, you can see that in the middle column, we have also collective channels from the sides. And the main thing about collective is that it wants to share. This is the only thing it wants to do. It wants to share, it wants to share stories, it wants to share details, it wants to share guidance, direction, it wants to share experience process, it wants to share its flow and rhythm, it wants to share its, what it experienced through cycles, it wants to share what it likes to concentrate on, it wants to share its talent, it wants to share its feelings. Like it's all about sharing, and collective is easy, like collective structures. So you can see we live in the collective structures, airports, like all these collective structures, which is all about what can we do so the patterns are good, so we can share as quick as possible. So collective works on in the best scenario, it works on patterns, so it's very smooth. Things and information goes really quickly without facing troubles. So it just wants to align the movement. All the roads are collective structures, as I've said. And what's interesting about collective is that it's fading away, the structures. With the mutation that's happening, which is ignited by planets and the transition into 2027, is that collective is fading away. It stops working with collective structures and tribal structures there start to collapse. You cannot rely on them anymore. We individuate, we really kind of start to getting to know ourselves, not within certain structures, but like without structures. Who are we without structures, without finding support in its timing and its, in its patterns. So sharing, support, empowerment, these are three main keywords for those streams. And whether you have definition in one or the other, those keywords is like for you important to know, because they're powerful words to align with and to start to contemplate. I thought it's going to be short, but again, so I'm giving back my mic to Alison. Alison, your mic.
I thought I'd unmuted there. Yeah, that's a brilliant overview of how all those gates are operating. It's really fascinating. And also understanding this bigger picture of how the collective gates are going to become less and less influential, and the individual is what is coming out now as we approach 2027. And I think that can be really disconcerting. You know, I kind of get the feeling the last few years, like life is trying to organize me rather than I'm trying to organize my life. And when I allow that, the life to organize me, it's like just miracles and flow and, you know, abundance, prosperity. But there's always that urge to kind of hold on to the security somehow of those old structures. So I think that's going to be a big thing we're working with. But I feel, as you were talking, I feel that what you're talking about leads us really perfectly to talk about Sedna and Ceres. So I'm going to share the chart. Now, on the 9th of January, which is this coming Sunday, we have Venus Sun conjunction. This is a really big marker point for the next 18-month cycle, where it's called the Meta-Goddess cycle in Capricorn. So Venus is in this very earthy, practical, alchemical cycle that she's entering into. So I'm not going to go too much into this chart. I'll do that probably on the 9th. I'm going to do a little podcast just on that. But what I'd like to point out today is the moon's node. So the moon's nodes have just shifted from the Sagittarius Gemini axis into the Taurus Scorpio axis. So they haven't quite shifted gene keys yet. That's still coming. I think Katreni said the 18th. She can clarify that in a bit. But what we have at the moment is this movement into this axis, which is a real life, death, rebirth axis. And actually it is associated with the story of Demeter and Ceres, who goes on this journey into the underworld. So you might notice as well that all the planets are on this side of the chart and most of the asteroids. And this is something very rare. It's called Akala Sarpa Yoga. It's even more rare because all the planets are moving towards the North Node here. And this is going to end in April, when you can see Mercury is in right here at the moment in Aquarius. And when Mercury comes out the other end, past the North Node, then the Kala Sarpa Yoga will be over. But we're in a very intense time. This is what it's all about, this karmic clearing. And interesting, it's coinciding with the Venus retrograde at the moment, which is her 40-day retrograde period. So very intense kind of clearing out of, I guess, the collective, but also the tribal and the individual. It's going to be on all levels, really, isn't it? Okay, so what we have, though, is Ceres here is exactly conjunct, or 1 degree away from the North Node. And actually, we also have the body Sedna here. Sedna is a trans-Neptunian object, and her orbit, 11,500 years, okay? So in my entire lifetime, Sedna's moved from around 3 degrees Taurus up to, she's around 28 degrees Taurus now. So she's moving very, very slowly. So what can these two goddesses, what are they all about? You know, because they have an individual story. So as I share their stories, you could think how does this apply to my life individually? But I'm feeling also it applies to the much bigger story of what's happening with Gaia as well. So Sedna's really interesting because when she's young, she breaks the tribal rules. Okay, she's in the Inuit tribe and she doesn't want to get married. And you can imagine, like nowadays, not wanting to get married, it's not such a big deal, but in an Inuit little tribe, not wanting to get married would really make you stand out as some kind of freak, okay? So what she loved to do was go out on the ice in her kayak. She was to go hunting with her dogs. So she's got quite a kind of masculine side to her, I guess, what we'd call a tomboy today. She was that kind of girl. And increasingly, she comes under pressure to marry as she gets older, and all these guys come along and she's like, no, thank you, I'm not interested in you. But finally, the stranger turns up, and it doesn't really say in the story, but I guess I'm seeing it through my own eyes, really, and experience, that maybe her father kind of pressured her a bit into this marriage. You know, come on now, you've got to do this. But it turns out this man is very cruel, and he takes her to a nest on a high cliff. He's a birdman shaman, but not a nice one. And her father hears her cries, and he does go and try and get her. But when the birds come after the boat, her father throws her overboard and then whacks her hands off with the oars, which become like dolphins and whales. That's a nice part of the story. So there's a huge betrayal here by the family, by the father. This is essentially what I feel happens with Sedna. You know, she doesn't want to be in the tribal rules, and she's betrayed by her father, who doesn't protect her. But she becomes, through this transformation process, she becomes this all-powerful goddess of the deep northern, very cold oceans. And one way we've mentioned her before, myself and Katreni, she reminded me yesterday, is in the melting of the ice flows at the moment. You know, is actually releasing memory back into the earth through the water. And so Sedna's trauma, but her transformation as well, this is something that is there in the collective unconscious, kind of melting away as the ice flows melt, like a mirroring process. Okay, so that's her story. And then Ceres also leaves the tribe, but for different reasons. So Ceres is an all-powerful goddess on Mount Olympus. You know, she's got it all there. There would be, you've got the power, you've got the money, you've got the privileged life. And then suddenly her daughter goes missing. Now we find out later on that her father Zeus has actually given Persephone to Pluto Hades in marriage, but no one's asked the daughter, no one's asked the mother, like what they would like. And so part of the story for me is the overriding of the feminine's wishes and this kind of oppressive story. So if we look at the nodes in 34, this is the shadow of force. And here we see clearly an act of force. Persephone is forced into a marriage. and Sedna's forced into a marriage. And this is what begins the whole problem. The whole thing starts unraveling really from these forced marriages. And so Ceres leaves her life of privilege and she walks in rags across the earth. She's really, she's crying, she's in despair, and she's killing the earth, because this is the only power she has, is to stop the fertility of the earth. This is her only way of getting Persephone back. Now there's two interesting characters that enter the story, and I feel like they're relevant in some ways. That's a bit mysterious. But the first one is Hekate. So she's a goddess of the three pathways, and she's like a guide in the underworld. And in terms of where we are collectively, it feels though we're in an underworld phase on Earth, and we're trying to find our way out of the underworld. So Hekate is a guide for that. And she also is the one who tells Ceres where her daughter is. So she's a provider of the knowledge that brings about the resolution of the problem. And there's another goddess who I absolutely love, called Baubo, who is a talking vagina, and she tells really lewd jokes. And so she gets Ceres to laugh, and her getting Ceres to laugh is actually a real turning point in the whole story, and the coming to resolution of Persephone coming out of the underworld. So I always found that really fascinating over the years. And maybe we could relate that a bit to the energy of Gene Key 3 as well, that kind of childlike playfulness that I feel is like a key to the energies of this time, is to find the playfulness within ourselves. Okay, so just to say something as well about, so when the nodes shift, I'm going to hand back to Katreni in a minute to say more on these, but when they shift into 14 and 8, I think these are really important shadows that I'm feeling myself working on and seeing around me, which are compromise and mediocrity. And our whole world, I mean, this is interesting because again, we can see in the tribal and in the collective, those forces have the urge to homogenize, to make us all behave really well so it doesn't have to change. There's a lot of stability when there's no people wanting to express their individuality and going off on tangents. There's a lot of stability in the tribe and in the collective. So the more these energies awake, the more they destabilize the stability of the forms of life, whether that's the economy or our ideas about science or art or education. And we begin to break free into the gifts of, I love that gift of the 8, of style. That's one of my favorite ones. Is I don't have it in my profile, but I love to draw on it. Yeah, so this is kind of what I perceive happening in the big picture of everything transforming. So yeah, these individual keys, they're quite destabilizing. They're gonna enhance the chaos. Maybe we could look at that actually through the eyes of people refusing to be vaccinated. It's a very individual thing. It's like I'm listening to my body, not to the government, you know, and the government doesn't like that, you know, how dare you, you know, not listen to our authority. Yes, so it's an interesting kind of, I could see it all playing out through that, but through many other fields of life where people are kind of refusing to cooperate with the authorities, not always in positive ways, but you can see the individuality growing as people are like, well, I don't see why I should do that. You know? So yes, I'll hand back to you, Katreni, to say something on the nodal shift, like how you're feeling that at the moment.
Thank you, Alison. I will also share my screen a bit later, but I want to echo like about this false marriages, and that's what I've been talking about. Tribal, for example, thing which is outdated, and this forced marriages is like a forced marriages of us as individual to the power structures which are outdated and been outdated for 400 years already. But we needed them before to survive as a species, to grow in number, and growing in number brought mutation. But now something else happening. First is that the program releases us, so the structure's gonna collapse without any help from the side of individuals. It's just gonna deteriorate. I mean, it will try to control until the end and freak out, but in the end, the program itself going to disrupt, and things start to fall. And there is good things, because we won't be forced to marry those. And the other thing is that we still were finding security in those connections. So, and that's a lot for me. The taste of Pluto is that it brings this fear and transformation, and we don't like forced marriages. Some of us do like this, because they feel like part of this collective streams and part of what's going on, and that's their choice, that's their kind of path. But many of us don't like being forced, and but still we were relying on those structures. And when they're gonna disappear, or when they're gonna like choke too much in the dark night in the end. But yeah, we will have to release those structures from within and without, but also with that we will have to release our false security and find our individual truth and our individual spirit. And it's not like we're talking about the period of like 20 years. It's going to happen in the 6 years, the whole thing unfold, and then there will be a bit different times. And what I also felt in those stories is this Venus retrograde taste that's going on now as well. We are going to be faced with deep insecurities, which are from the very early age of ours when we were children. Our own values, like while Venus retrograding, there is this coming up, as you said, like this this ice that's melting now and releasing the memories. And also that sounds like this Venus retrograde, something gets released in our unconscious, and something comes up with tears and with grief and with our own values, which we are figuring out now. What are my own values? And not my parents' one, not the government one, but my own. And this is what Venus retrograde does for me. But I guess you will add to that, or maybe you want to add to it now before the notes.
Well, just to say, I've been doing this daily practice with a group of women, and we begin with the 10 mudra, the treasure chest. Then it's the 58, the yoni mudra. Love this, the 38 boundaries. My boundaries have become so much better in the last few weeks. And then the 54, which is the Kundalini, the 61. How do you do the 61? Is this one? Mm-hmm. The sanctity of the body, the sheltered place. So that feels really nice, you know. Like, how do I see my own body as a sheltered place? You know, it's up to me to kind of take care of my body. And then the most intriguing one of all is the 60, which is the void, and divine justice. So it feels like through all of this, the energy is coming to a place of stillness, where the karma burns off, potentially, obviously not for everyone, but there's a lot of karma in our female bodies. And this is kind of what I'm experiencing, is the release of layers and layers of being conditioned to be a sexual object, to not protect my boundaries, not to honor my body, not to honor my femaleness. So I feel like this is just doing these mudras is really strengthening so many positive things about myself, you know, and not getting obsessed about this female body, because in the end we've got to let go of that as well. But it feels like there's a lot of layers of conditioning that need to kind of fall away, almost so that becoming female male isn't that important anymore. It's only, in a way, it's important while the oppression is still acting itself out, if that makes sense.
Yes, individuation. We are all unique, and our femaleness and maleness, or inner balance of masculine and feminine, is a unique one. And that's, I guess, what we're figuring out. And that's the transformation Pluto brings. And Pluto is like a grandma, and those you've mentioned, like Sedna, is a big game player in those, together with Pluto, because Pluto is what brings all of this transformation, all of this mutation, goes through all the gates, the codon, and strokes them, and it releases them. And it's a huge, huge transformation that's happening on the collective. And Sedna and another badass Aries are girls of Grandma Pluto, and that's gang that kind of really, really changed it all for us, for the whatever stories, patriarch stories, whatever structures, power structures that's been created by those games as well. They are going to be transformed, illuminated, and individuated. And yeah, anyways, it feels empowering, a lot of empowering, but also a lot of facing of own, like my own stuff, like my own strange stuff. And yeah, about the nodes, I will share also, I want to speak about, because we've been, here are the nodes, 2034 nodes of the manifesting generator. This is this channel 3420. This is a classical manifesting generator energy, which is about power in the now, like channel of charisma. It's about sacral power that's being manifested in the now. And we've been in this energy since early autumn, like for many, many months. And in the early human design thing, it's about, it was a design to do. So during this period, there was one good thing, which was about empowerment. I guess everyone got lots of empowerment, lots of busyness, and that could be a good busyness, or it could be busyness on the surface where there were lack of awareness. That would actually bring those nodes. When you have these nodes, this pair of polarities, 3420, this is polarities, programming partners, and this particular energy without awareness, it's a mess. It's a mess, or with awareness, it could be a very empowered stream of energy. And this period also, all of the babies were born manifesting generators for many months, many months, all of the babies, all without exception, being born manifesting generators. And that's pretty crazy. Also, because we have 6 years until 2027 comes, and 3420 would be the program for another hundreds of years, and that would be the energy of this manifesting generator. So those babies being born now would play a role the moment we hit February 2027. But what's happening now, like the nodes are tricky. The nodes, first of all, it's not objects, it's not planets, it's holes in the sky through which the stream of neutrino comes without agency, without energy of any of the planets. So it's a pure stream of neutrinos entering the collective, entering our individual body and chemistry. It's a pure neutrino stream on this axis. And this axis of the nodes, it changes in human design, in astrology. It's the axis into Scorpio and Taurus comes a bit earlier, but for us, I guess it's around 18th of January. It's not the correct time, but anyways, we come from the first line in the nodes into the sixth line, and the nodes change. So it's axis of 8-14, which is interesting because it's also individual gates. You could see 8 here and 14 here. And what I've noticed, what's very interesting is that so it's also about empowerment, but it's very different. If the nodes 3420 manifesting generators, it was not about the group energy, it was about integration. It's about survival in the now. It's about we've been connected with our body, and we've had some kind of process of integration of like holding our stuff together and within the physicality of ours. And 8-14 axis is a pentagate. So I predict that what's going to happen for a couple of months is that this axis going to direct us into the groups, into the small groups, small families, pentas from 3 to 5 people. This is going to be the whole energy of the environment. So we're going to be conditioned through this nodal axis and the neutrino stream, bringing energy of these two keys of exquisiteness and competence or power skills. And I know I can contribute voice, the voice of the 8. I know I can contribute or not. And the power skills, I know I have a strengths and skills. And this is a golden wagon of the small group from 3 to 5 people, Penta. So, and this is an individual stream within the Penta. So this is a lot about creativity. This is a channel. For example, the 8 going to define my first gate where I have my Pluto. So I will have the whole channel. I would be able to finally express and wrap up my creativity process, which without 8 has no entrance to the throat. So it's a role model, creative channel for creative role model design, 8-1, and 214 is this channel of pulse, and it's a design of keeper of the keys. So it's super important. Without 14 gates, there is no energy, no resources, and no money in the small group, in the Penta. So 14 is very important because it brings power skills, it brings strengths, and it gives resources into the small groups. And 8 says, I want to contribute, I want to contribute. I want to contribute to this, and I want to speak out someone's creativity or creativity of this particular group. So that's very kind of, I'm not scared that this is Scorpio. Taurus axis, which is pretty scary axis actually, because there's a lot of transformation. But this 814 is very, very interesting environment with a great potential of power and potential of individual strengths within the group, skill-based interaction. That's another important thing about that, is that it's going to bring skill-based interaction and encourage people to interact using their talent and skills, which was different from 3420, which was about integration, me, I'm busy. This one is about groups. This is about, okay, things going to collapse. What is my group of people? What kind of I can contribute? What are my skills? What is the exchange if there is no money exchange? What is this exchange of power and strengths and skills? And also there is going to be a potential of frustration if skills are not used correctly. That's another dangerous thing, which was awareness in the 2034, lack of awareness here. It will be frustration. 14 is a generator thing, so it's a keynote of frustration. So it's a frustration of skills are not shared correctly, and or individual contribution and strengths of the group. There is lack of contribution, the 8. So there is lack of contribution, or skills are shared incorrectly and doesn't serve the goal of the group. So one of the most important things is that if you don't have channels here, you are not a Penta person, which means you don't belong to the small group. So be very careful, consult human design consultant or someone, or investigate, Google it, I don't know. Be very careful with small groups during this period of time, because maybe you don't belong it. And if you belong, you need to know what to delegate and what are your power skills and what are your skills, because it's a possibility that this node's going to bring into your node self, and you're going to just exhaust yourself and be frustrated, at least. So that's a good and bad of this shift. It's a big one. You're going to all feel it. Yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to share about the nodes, and we're coming to time to wrap our conversation, and I give back to Alison. Thanks. Mike, wait.
Yeah, before we finish, there's just to say something about Uranus as well. So Kim Gould from Love Your Design created this. It was in one of her blogs, but it shows so superbly how Uranus is in 24 at the moment. It's going to go back to 2. It's already spent some time in 2. Then we'll be in 23. So that should be interesting, the 23, because I think our desire to move away from complex systems will really be enhanced then. We'll be trying to find the simplest ways of doing things, or want to simplify our lives. And then we have the 8. Yeah, so all through, like leading up to 2027, we have these very powerful Uranus one after the other activations. And that's coupled, you know, we mentioned at the start, that's coupled with Pluto is moving into Gene Key 60 on the 14th of January. So just before the nodal shift into the 14-8. Yes, so that's going to have a huge impact, I think, as well. So it'd be really interesting to kind of see how everything plays out in the world in the next couple of months as we enter into that. And hopefully from this, I think what I wanted to communicate today is that there is ways to be with this chaotic changing energy, and to allow yourself to think outside the box, to let life organize you rather than trying to kind of cling on to the old structures, and to allow that kind of beauty of the creative force that is in the trees and the butterflies and the flowers and the oceans and in us, you know, to kind of lift it, let it lift us up and take us on a journey, an exciting adventure. So rather than trying to resist the change, we embrace it and we go with it. And that playfulness energy of the three, I think, is going to be, you know, lift our hearts and help us find our way out of the underworld kind of Scorpio energies. So that's where I want to end today. And I'll just invite you, Katreni, to tie up loose ends and say goodbye.
Thank you, Alison. Yeah, that was beautiful. I think we need to have a separate podcast for 360 mutation channel and Pluto in the 60, maybe pretty soon, because it hits, it moves from 61 into 60, and that's the kind of wrapping up a human story as well. But yeah, I love 3 because it says, give me something new, give me something new. I don't want this collective old things. So there's going to be a mutation. So it's about welcoming mutation, and mutation is something unpredictable. We cannot control it. We cannot know it. Same as life. We cannot put it in the banks because life is flowing within like its own structures, which are alive. And yeah, we can join it or we may not see it. Yeah. I like the sensuality of the quantum reality, and maybe we will weave in Mandelbrot and its sensual visual mathematics next time. But we really recommend you to watch those 2 movies, which we'll put in the links for you to follow what we mean about that. But yes, for now, it's enough. And thank you for watching us play. See you next time.